you again to the lecture series of Database Management System. From our last lecture, we have started Entity Relationship Model or ER model. Now, in this lecture, we are actually going into the details of ER model. We will start with what is attribute, and we will see what are the different types of attribute possible. Simple and composite attributes, single valued and multi-valued attribute, stored versus derived attribute. And after that, we will see different types of keys possible. So stay tuned and enjoy the lecture. So now we will start different types of attribute. But before I go into the details of the types of attribute, I must tell you why do we need to study these different types of attributes, because you will see that these different types of attributes have got different representation in your diagram. Like whenever we will be talking about simple versus composite attribute, then simple and composite attributes, these two kinds of attributes will have completely different representation in your diagram. And naturally, whenever they will be translated to table structure, they will have different representation in the table structure itself. Okay, so we need to study different types of attribute. So let's start. First, we will study simple versus composite attribute. I have taken the student example, and it consists of several attributes like roll number, class, date of birth. Now, these attributes, roll number, class, or date of birth, they cannot be broken down into meaningful subparts. Okay, so they are called simple attribute. Okay, and since they cannot be broken, they have got another name. They are also called atomic attributes. Okay, thus these simple attributes, they will be represented like this ellipse in your diagram. Understood? So if you have understood simple attributes, then what is a composite attribute? Take for example address. Address is address of student. Okay. So, if I take address as the attribute, then address can be definitely divided into subparts like street, city, zip, and country. Okay. So, address attribute will be called as composite attribute because they can be broken down into subparts. And you remember that in database design, this composite attribute must be changed into a number of simple attributes to facilitate query. Means, if I want to know, suppose, who are people who are living in Kolkata or in India, whatever country, or so whenever we want to know this kind of query, so from only a single address field, it's virtually impossible to get the data. That's why I have to decompose this address into street, city, zip, country. So whenever I'll be giving who are the people who lives in India, so then I will tell, okay, this is the query. Then you look at the country attribute. And if country is India, then you select that person. Understood? That means always you remember that composite attributes must be broken down into several subparts, as I have shown in this figure. So whenever you complete this ER diagram, then you will see that this is the student entity, and student entity will have roll number, class, date of birth as simple attribute, and address as composite attributes. Understood? Now we will see what is single valued and what is multi-valued attribute. What is a single valued attribute? Take some example of same example. Let's take student entity. Student entity, already I have discussed with you that roll number, class, date of birth, they are simple attributes. And these attributes have got another feature because they can store only one value at a time from a set of possible value. Actually, these are simple attribute, but at the same time, I can tell you that these are single valued as well because they contain only one value, one and only one value from a set of possible value. Roll number at a time, it can have only one value. Suppose it is 100. It cannot have 100, 101. It should not be like this. That's why these type of attributes are having only one value. Date of birth. Only one date of birth is possible for a student. It cannot have, this particular field cannot have two date of birth entry for a particular student, because a student cannot have two date of birth at the same time, right? That's why these attributes will be called as single valued attribute. Then what is multi-valued attribute? Take same example. Now look at these two fields, like or you can say two attributes, mobile number and email ID. These two attributes that we have added to the student entity. Now, if you look and if you think very minutely, you will understand that each student can provide more than one email ID as well as more than one mobile number. So for a single student, more than one value is possible for mobile number and email ID. That's why these attributes can store multiple values at the same time. And these are called multi-valued attributes. So mobile number and email ID, they will be called as multi-valued attributes. Understood? And how they will be shown in the yard diagram? They are shown by this double ellipse structure. Okay, so remember, my dear students, always multi-valued attributes are shown in yard diagram by this kind of double ellipse. Last differentiation that we will be doing, that is between stored attribute and derived attribute. Okay, now what is a stored attribute? As the name suggests, stored attributes are those attributes which are actually physically saved in the database. But what about derived attribute? Derived attribute need not be stored in the database, because derived attribute contains values which can be calculated from other attributes. Let's take an example. Suppose whenever you have got this date of birth from in the student entity. Now, if I ask you what is the age of the student, then you need not store age along with the date of birth in the same table, right? Because age can be calculated when the system is run. It can be calculated directly from the date of birth, isn't it? So that's why this age should not be stored in the database, and definitely it is saving some space, isn't it? Space is not wasted because we are not storing age data for all the students, and that's why age will be called as derived attribute. So let's summarize, my dear students. In this lecture, we have discussed simple attribute, then we have discussed composite attributes, simple roll number, class, date of birth. Composite means address. Single valued attributes are same roll number, class or date of birth. Multi-valued attributes are mobile number and email ID. Stored attributes are actually roll number, class, date of birth, okay? And derived attributes are age, okay? So with this, I'm concluding my lecture. Hope you have enjoyed and hope you have learned a lot from this lecture, and your idea about the types of attributes right now, it is quite clear, isn't it? So let's stop here. Thank you so much.